All right, so as you can see, I've got my webbing running into both bolts, and it comes down here. It's tied with a water knot, and then it goes right over the edge to my rapid link, and that is ready to rappel on. So I'm getting ready to rappel here. I've got my harness on, I've got my helmet on, I've got my rope here, and I've got my anchor all rigged up, ready to roll. So what I'm gonna do is run my rope down to the bottom of the drop. And while I'm doing that, I'm clipping in, because I'm gonna have to be leaning out over to look down to make sure that I've got my rope set properly at the drop, at the base. I'm just gonna clip in with my personal safety into the anchor. That way I'm secure. And then I'm gonna hook my rope up here to this rapid link. Sometimes these aren't unlockable if they've been sitting in a canyon for a long time, and you have to run the rope through from the end, which is okay. So I've got this rope that I'm gonna flake out to make sure that it's not gonna get tangled on the way down. I have this set for something else, so it's not nicely stacked in a rope bag right now. Normally in a canyon, what I do is I have this stacked in a rope bag, and I can just pull it out of the rope bag and be ready to roll. But it's not a big rope, so here we go. And rope. What I'm gonna set up here is called a beaner block, a carabiner block. So it's going to be a single-stranded rappel, and I could do double with this rope, but I'm not going to right now. So what I have is a carabiner, and I'm going to tie a clove hitch. So there's a clove hitch onto the spine of my carabiner, just like that. So I got a clove hitch on the spine of my carabiner, and that's going to block my descent. So this end of the rope right here isn't going to touch the ground. Single-stranded. Now, there's a lot of risk with doing this. It's totally safe if you know what you're doing, but there is some risk. The first risk is that you rappel on the wrong strand. This is free. If I rappel on the wrong strand, I'm going straight down to the ground. So how do you know you're doing the right strand? Well, I only send one strand over the edge of the cliff. So I've got one strand going down. It's this strand coming out of the rapid link. This other one stays up here. If it's too long, say I've got a 300-foot rope for a 50-foot rappel, I can just pull out 50 feet of it, run it over the edge, beaner block this, and leave the other 250 feet in the bag. I gotta throw the bag down, but then once I get the bag down, I'm just gonna pull. Or I use a pull cord, and that's what I'm gonna have to do here because I don't have a long enough rope. Let's get on rappel. So here I have my ATS. I'm gonna hook my rope right into the ATS here. Like I said, by taking a bite and running it straight through the back, dropping it into the carabiner and locking that carabiner. Now, one thing I want to do, I want to choke all the way up to the rapide. That gives me no extension as I drop over the edge so that my rappel becomes easier. Canyoneering rappels can be tricky because, especially if you're the last man, because of that pull. You've got the pull of the rope is more important than an easy start. So I've got a pretty hard start set for myself. Nobody wants rope burn hands. So put my gloves on and do a check. Before I launch, I want to do a check, which is checking everything, safety check. So C stands for clothing, making sure that my clothing isn't loose and likely to get stuck in my belay device or tangled in my rope. Then H is for helmet. So I got my helmet on, it's strapped. Harness, got my harness on, it's tight. Hands, got my gloves protected. Hair, I don't have long hair, it's gonna get stuck in the device. Helmet, harness, hands, hair. And then next is the E, so environment. What are things looking like? Am I rappelling into water? Do I have things set? Is the end of the rope right? Who's left behind me? I'm gonna make sure that my party's safe. Environment just means you're doing a double check of everything around you before you drop. C is for connections. So I'm gonna check my carabiner. That's locked and solid. I'm gonna check my rapide. That's solid. I'm gonna check these connections. Oh look, see? That one wasn't locked. So that's locked now. I'm gonna check my anchor, and then K is for knots. So any knots in the system, I wanna double check, make sure that they're still good and they're not gonna get stuck when I try to pull. Got my clove here. So that's a quick check, make sure that everything's done. Now, before I launch off, because I've got a double strand system, I just want to double check to make sure that I'm connected to the right strand. And the way I do that is to make sure that my rapide is touching my belay device, in between my belay device and the clove, not the other way around. So now I still am safetied in to this anchor up here. And that's good because before I take off, I've got this double check to make sure that if anything in the system is wrong, except for the anchor's got to be secure for this to work. But if anything in my rigging is wrong, I'm going to get caught on my personal tether. So that's just a double check to make sure that everything's set up correctly. So let's test it out. I'm just gonna choke up on this anchor webbing and use it as part of my security for my stance. Before I get any further, hand on the brake line, right? Always on the brake line. So now what I'm gonna do is try to weight the system, and then I'll take my tether off once I can weight the system and make sure that the system is secure. So, system's weighted now. There's no weight on my tether. But if I needed it, it would have been there for me to catch me. But I don't need it. The system's got me. So, take the safety off. On belay, on rappel. Okay, so you see I'm tied up against here. I've got the rope on low friction mode, but the plate is on a higher friction mode. So I can go even lower friction than this if I want. I've gone through all my checks, I'm on the right strand, and I'm on rappel. So as I go down, I'm holding this brake strand down by my hip, my legs, about shoulder width apart. I'm walking down the wall, I'm not bounding down the wall. And I try to keep my heel
on the wall. If my heels aren't on the wall, it means I'm standing too vertical and I'm likely to face plant into the wall. So keep your heels on the wall, butt down like you're sitting in a chair, and just a gradual descent. With this Piranha, or with this ATS, if I wanted to add some more friction, which I don't, I could simply by going over just like that. And that's pretty much lock. If I wanted to lock, I could by going behind that horn there. That'll lock me so I'm hands free. But this is plenty of friction for the way I'm set up. So I'm going to keep descending. Nice controlled speed, not too fast. Even if you feel like you're in control, going too fast down this will create a lot of heat on your rope, and it can end up singeing and melting the outside of your rope a little bit, giving it a shiny, clean tone. And that's the indication of rope damage because you're rappelling too fast. So just nice controlled steps down the wall. Make sure you're looking behind you where you're going, paying attention to what's below and where you're aiming. So here we are at the bottom. Stand up, off belay, off rappel. There you go.